Welcome. Whether the Unitarian Church of Evanston is your spiritual home or you are seeking comfort and connection in uncertain times, we are grateful you are with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community, seeking truth and love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us matters and that we are all connected through a vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our oneness, our kinship with one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind and with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links of connection in the Show More section, including credits for the readings and links to virtual religious education, for donations, and to be added to our email newsletter list. A few announcements. The all-church Zoom gathering will be on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Immediately following this gathering will be the next 8th Principal Town Hall meeting at 6:30 p.m. We'll send a reminder email in the early afternoon on Wednesday with the link. The Zoom link will be the same for the 5:30 gathering and the 6:30 Town Hall meeting. Please join us. Interfaith Action Clergy invite all members of our community to come together for a vigil in recognition of 1 year of loss and adaptation, with hope for renewal and moving forward together. This will take place virtually on Monday, March 15th at 7 p.m. The Zoom link will be in the Wednesday and Friday newsletters. We'll hold a virtual coffee and conversation after this service for 30 minutes on Zoom. You can find the link in the Show More section or in the newsletter. If you are still figuring out our new directory or how to log into Realm, please join Adam for a Realm training this afternoon at 1:15 right after coffee hour. The Zoom link is in the newsletter and in the Show More section on YouTube. Next Sunday, we'll have our first virtual coffee tables with the Immigrant Solidarity team and Prison Ministry team, each hosting a breakout room during the Zoom coffee hour. Next Sunday is also the end of our pledge drive. You should have received an email on February 26th with your pledge form. If you haven't, reach out to Jessica in the office. And here's an update from Joe Romeo, and then Martha Holman and Jean Curl will share why they support UCE.
Happy first Sunday in March. My name is Joe Romeo, and I am the Vice President of the Board of Trustees. I heard from my friend Jessica Tomel Presto that there are crocuses popping up already in her yard. The temperature Monday is expected to go above 60 degrees, and so far we have gotten pledges totaling more than $270,000. All signs of a happy spring not far away. Our pledge goal this year is $553,000 and for everyone to participate as you are able. This is an important part of how we can nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. If you haven't been able to make your pledge yet, check your email. Messages were sent on February 26th and March 1st. If you can't find that, there is a link on our website. Look for the graphic of a tree. If you have submitted your pledge form but didn't get a confirmation email yet, please contact the office at admin@ucevanston.org. We will celebrate the pledge drive with a party next Saturday, March 13th at 7 p.m. Pre-parties starting at 6:30. Save the date. Hope to see you there. Thank you so much for your continued generosity.
Hi. When I was asked about what I like about UCE or what I love about UCE, I started thinking about it and I came up with a lot of words that started with C, the capital letter C. So, for instance, we're a community of caring in our congregation, and that's very important to me. We have compassion for others in our service work and in the way we deal with each other in our relationships within this church and outside of it. And lastly, we have the courage to act together for social justice, also very important for all of us. Plus, what about fun, joy, and music? Thanks.
One thing that I really love about UCE is our 4 communion rituals. These start in June with the flower communion. In September is the water. At Thanksgiving time, we have the bread communion, and usually in January is the fire communion. These rituals have become an important part of the rhythm of my life and other lives, I'm sure. Although they involve the ministers and the staff and a lot of work to set these things up, they're also very communal in nature. So whether you remember or forget to bring bread to the bread communion, you still get to receive a piece. And each of them operate in a way like this. So reciprocity is kind of at the center of all that, which is symbolic of life here at UCE. So I'm very grateful for both the joy that's provided on those days. They do seem particularly full of life, and everyone's happy to share and bring things together. But also it's a good time to reflect. Some of them are more reflective about the starting of the church year with the water, or the fire communion and the start of the calendar year. So these moments of joy and reflection are part of what I absolutely love about UCE. Thanks to everybody who makes them possible.
And now we invite you to get your chalices ready and set a place for yourself and your family as we join in beloved community. We light our chalice in northern Illinois, on the traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations. Many other tribes, such as the Miami, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, Sac, and Fox, also call this area home. We name these in honor and respect. As Marlo, Frankie, and Shannon light the chalice, please join in saying the words by Reverend Kristen Harper, printed on your screen. Each day provides us with an opportunity to love again, to hurt again, to embrace joy, to experience unease. Each day provides us with the opportunity to live. This day is no different. This hour no more unique than the last, except maybe today, maybe now, among friends and fellow journeyers, we can share ourselves. Please join in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our service today has many voices speaking to the essence of beloved community, about pain, accountability, forgiveness, healing, love, and at its core, relationship. Our relationships with each other, our relationships with our larger faith community, and our relationships with our neighbors and society.
Beloved community is when we say we, and we mean everyone. Beloved community is not homogeneous. It can't be. When commonality is presumed, when we make assumptions about who's present and whether people are like us or not, we're not practicing beloved community, because beloved community doesn't make those assumptions. It doesn't presume commonality. Another thing that beloved community is not like-minded, because we're not called to be like-minded in spiritual community. We're called to be like-hearted.
And finally, beloved community is not devoid of conflict, and this one is also really hard. Beloved community is not easy. There's nothing easy about practicing beloved community. When we avoid conflict in order to get along, we're not practicing beloved community, because beloved community exists when we trust each other. We have the relationships, the strong enough relationships, to actually disagree with each other, to be in conflict, even to risk hurting each other. And we can stay in relationship through those disagreements and conflict and potential hurt. That's practicing beloved community.
We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best we can.
We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions,
listening, living our answers, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, and being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. We are one.
second reading you just heard was written by Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson, who was a beloved elder in Unitarian Universalism and who died in November of last year. She served as the minister of the congregation in Central Nassau, New York for 15 years, before serving as the congregational life consultant for the UUA's Central East region and Southern region, where she specialized in conflict resolution and multicultural congregational development. Reverend Johnson's words affirm for us that we build beloved community by choosing to journey together, by caring deeply and loving the best as we can. She also reminds us that building beloved community is difficult, that we have to take risks and open up to each other. And in doing that, we often make mistakes. And when that happens, we have to be able to listen to each other, to have the strength and energy to share the harm caused, to have the compassion and trust to believe the harm occurred, to live with our mistakes in love, humility, and grace, and then to apologize, and then to forgive when possible, and then to make amends when possible, and then to heal together, and to move forward to share our sorrows and celebrate our joys together. Beloved community is a term first coined in the early days of the 20th century by philosopher theologian Josiah Royce, who was born in 1855 to English immigrants. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was born in 1929 into a family of African American ministers, expounded upon this concept of beloved community. Reverend King calls us to create communities within all aspects of our lives, our congregations, our neighborhoods, our society, where people of diverse racial, ethnic, educational, class, gender, sexual orientation, and other diverse backgrounds and identities come together in an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect, and care that seeks to realize justice within a specific community and in the broader world. The eighth principle specifically calls us, as you use, to continue this cultural odyssey of building beloved community. A link to the eighth principle Learning Communities website and a link to UCE's eighth principle webpage are listed in the order of service. Here are the words of the eighth principle. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Please join me in singing hymn 1017, Building a New Way. We have a version of the hymn arranged by and sung by Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout, the Director of Worship and Music at the First UU Congregation in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these the world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
Today's story for all ages is Ron's Big Mission by Rose Blue and Corinne J. Naden, illustrated by Don Tate. You're up early this morning, Ron. What's the rush? Asked Mrs. McNair. Come and have your breakfast. I made some oatmeal. I have to go, Mama, said Ron, tying his sneakers. I have something to do this morning. You always have something to do, said his mother with a smile. Just be home by lunchtime, okay? Ron was 9 years old. That morning, he left his house with a plan. He'd been thinking about it for a long time. It was a beautiful South Carolina summer day, and Ron looked up at the blue, blue sky. Someday, he thought, he would be up there, flying a plane. He wanted to be a pilot when he grew up. But today, Ron had something else on his mind, something very important. Ron walked down the street as fast as he could. He didn't want to be late. Hi, Ron, the grocer called from his front of the store. There you are, just in time for a donut. Morning, Mr. Douglas, said Ron. Thank you, but there's someplace I've got to be. And Ron kept on walking. Down by the schoolyard, Ron saw his friend Carl shooting baskets. All right, you made it, called Carl. Hi, Carl, said Ron. I wish I could stay, but I've got something important to do. More important than basketball on summer vacation, said Carl. Are you kidding? Ron laughed. He loved to play basketball, but not today. Today was too important. Ron kept on walking. When Ron got to the Lake City Public Library, he stopped. This was it. He was hot from walking so fast, and he was nervous too. He took a deep breath, he lifted his head high, and he went inside. Mrs. Scott was busy getting ready for all the people who would be using the library today. As the head librarian, she had to make sure that everything was neat and orderly. Mrs. Scott looked up to welcome her first visitor of the day. She smiled as Ron walked in. He was her best customer. Ron gave a little wave to Mrs. Scott and went right to the shelves. It took Ron a while to find some books. He always looked for books that showed children who looked like him. But that was hard. There were not many books about Black kids on the shelves. At last, Ron found some books on airplanes. He took the books and started to walk to the front desk. Ron felt nervous, and his hands felt a little sweaty, but he knew what he wanted to do. Mrs. Fielding, a white lady who was often in the library, stopped him. "You can give me the books, and I'll check them out for you, Ron," she said gently. "No thanks, Mrs. Fielding," said Ron. "I'm going to do it all by myself." "But Ron," she started to say. Ron was already on his way to the front desk. He put the books on the counter. "I'd like to check these out, please," said Ron. The desk clerk didn't look at him. Didn't she hear me? Ron wondered. Ron knew what he had to do. He jumped up on the counter. He wanted the desk clerk to know he was serious. "I'd like to check out these books," he said quietly. At first, the desk clerk and Mrs. Scott just looked at each other. "You know you can't check out the books, Ron," said Mrs. Scott. "You can read them here. That's the rule. Only white people can check out books from the library." Ron looked at Mrs. Scott and the desk clerk politely, but he would not budge. "I always read them here. Today I want to check them out," said Ron. Mrs. Scott and the desk clerk did not know what to do. Ron wouldn't get off the counter. People were staring. Finally, the desk clerk called the Lake City police. The policeman came right over. "Let someone check out the books for you, son," said one of the policemen. "You know the rules." But Ron just shook his head. He would not budge. Now, Mrs. Scott called Ron's mother. Mrs. McNair came to the library very quickly. "I know how you feel, baby," she said, "but you have to follow the rules." "I can't, Mama," Ron told her. "It's wrong. The rules are not fair. Why can't I check out books like everyone else?" No one said anything. Not the desk clerk, not Mrs. Scott, not the policeman, not even Ron's mother. Mrs. Scott looked at Ron. She thought about all the times that Ron came into the library and all the times he sat at the tables for hours looking over so many books. He was her best customer, and she knew what she had to do. Mrs. Scott walked back into her office and started writing. Ron wondered what she was doing. Mrs. Scott returned and handed Ron a library card. His library card. Ron looked at Mrs. Scott and smiled. As he jumped to the floor, he thought he saw her smile too. "I'd like to check out these books, please," he said, handing the card to the desk clerk. The desk clerk took his library card and stamped the cards in the back of the books. "These are due back in 2 weeks," she said. Ron smiled. "Thank you," he said. He tucked the books under his arm and took his mother's hand. Together, they walked home. Ron couldn't wait to get to his room. And open to page 1. In the author's note in the back of the book, it states, "The boy who was Ron McNair grew into a man who flew planes just like he dreamed he would do. He became an astronaut. Today, everyone in Lake City remembers him. They remember him every time they walk into the library. Inside the library, anyone can check out books. Ron McNair had a dream. On that day in 1959, he made it start to come true. Because of him, many young people have a chance to dream. You can only be a winner if you're willing to walk over the edge, astronaut McNair once told a group of children. You're eagles, spread your wings, and fly to the sky.
You may share joys and sorrows by submitting them through the Google form found on the homepage of our website. Alternatively, you may send an email to me or to Reverend Eileen. These are the joys and sorrows that have been shared with us ahead of today's service. Congratulations to Kristen Lems for earning the Elliott Jude Outstanding Teacher Award this year from the Illinois Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages and Bilingual Education. Congratulations. Andy Fisher is celebrating that he finally got a ticket for his first COVID-19 vaccine on Friday at 1:30. Chris Chambers is home after having a positive COVID test before surgery. He is experiencing no symptoms other than the frustration that his needed surgery on his leg is delayed. He appreciates all the cards and calls of care that he's received. Dave Woods is receiving care at McGaw Care Center for compressed discs in his back after a recent fall. He is feeling better and will be returning to his apartment soon. Cards of care are welcome. Janelle Britton is grateful to share that her husband Mike should be released from the hospital tomorrow after a week's stay due to gallbladder issues. Liliana Stevoff, a longtime friend of UCE, died on February 26th at the age of 86. She will be fondly remembered and dearly missed by many of our congregants. A memorial will be held in Connecticut on March 13th. If you would like the link to that service, please contact Reverend Eileen. The family has asked that donations be given to UCE in remembrance of the important role our community played in Liliana's life. Another sorrow is that Kinney Smith, longtime Unitarian Universalist and member of UCE for the last several years, died on Thursday at the age of 90. He was at McGaw Care Center and his wife, Mary Beth, was holding his hand when he died. We will let you know about memorial arrangements. We know that these are not the only joys and sorrows that are on our hearts today. Let us take a moment of quiet now to read to ourselves the joys and sorrows that have been added to the chat. We hold these together in care and tenderness. And I invite you to say aloud the names of those that you are holding in your heart, those you miss seeing in person, those who you are celebrating with, those who you know are struggling, those who are sick or have died. As we say their names aloud, we gather them into this community that knows no walls. We hold these as well as the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken. Together we expand our celebrations and lessen the burden of our grief. I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, as we transition from the snowbound streets and sledding hills of winter to the singing birds and peaty smells of spring, continue to provide us with patience and endurance. Help us continue to be considerate of others, reaching out to each other as we are able, knowing that some of us are still very isolated from in-person contact with others. Remind us also to continue to care for and be gentle with ourselves. We are grateful for the science that has brought us a COVID-19 vaccine, and also still unsure of what the months ahead will bring. So many of us have lost loved ones over the past year, not just from the pandemic, but in the regular course of life. And we have not been able to grieve together with our friends and families as we would have liked. We need strength to endure this compounded loss. This year of confinement has affected each of us in different ways. Some of us have had time to address old wounds and take care of our physical and mental health. Others of us have had new stressors added and are more exhausted and worried than before. Remind us that we need to continue to listen to each other, to speak honestly but kindly with each other, and to hold each other in love. We are grateful for this faith community that is dedicated to learning and growing. Grateful for the people who provide us with support and kindness, who encourage us to expand and call us into being accountable for our words and deeds, who again and again show us love and compassion. Spirit of life, be with each of us as spring erupts into new colors, new sounds, and new smells. Let us feel the renewal in our bodies, minds, and hearts. Blessed be. Please join in singing hymn 101, Abide with Me.
Fast falls the eventide, the darkness deepens, still with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Swift to its close, ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay in all around I see. O thou who changes not, abide with me. We need each other every passing hour. Channels of grace and life affirming power, faithful companions, share this path with me. Through all our fears and hopes, abide with me. The eighth principle states that we,
The member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association,
covenant to affirm and promote
journeying towards spiritual wholeness
by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community,
by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions,
in ourselves and in our institutions.
There are reasons why we look around our congregation and we don't see many Black, brown, and other people of color. There are reasons why Black and brown members of our community visit our congregation and may not come back. There are reasons why current members of our congregation who in times past were active participants in our congregation and on committees and have stepped away, vowing not to return. There are reasons why Black and brown members of our congregation may not attend regularly worship services. In 2017, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, Blue, conducted a survey of Black UUs. A link to this survey is in the order of service and can also be found on Blue's website. Findings showed that Black people tend to become part of a UU congregation because of the theology, not because of the community. White dominant culture gets in the way of their communal experience and serves as an exclusionary force in church life. Simply put, Black people, when they show up in ways that are culturally divergent from white, middle, and upper class culture, do not feel welcomed. And that's a quote from the survey. It is not enough for us to be a denomination or a congregation and individuals that do good work. It's not enough to be outward looking or focused. That the majority may be liberal and voted for Obama and Biden-Harris and have Black Lives Matter signs in our front yards or are on one or more social justice committees. We must continue to look or focus inward as well. The harm that has been and is caused from individual to individual, from person to person, from heart to heart, cannot be overlooked or overstated. The work must be done among us. The voices of our siblings of color in this faith can no longer be ignored. They have spoken to us through Black Lives of Universalism, Unitarian Universalism, blue. They have spoken to us through DRUM, which is Diverse and Revolutionary Unitarian Universalism, Multicultural Ministries. They have spoken to us through Widening the Circle of Concern. They have spoken to us through Beloved Conversations. They have spoken to us from the pulpit. They have spoken to us through Reverend Connie's recent sharing of UU history. They have spoken to us at General Assembly. They have spoken to us at Midwest Leadership School. The question is, UCE, are we truly listening? Are we truly committed to examining and dismantling our personal role in perpetuating the current systems that are preventing people of color from calling UCE their spiritual home? The eighth principle is not a static principle. It's one of action. It is a way for UCE and each individual member of our congregation to acknowledge the history and harm that members have themselves caused to people of color, and how the institution has and continues to cause harm to people of color. And most importantly, it is a vow to examine and dismantle both the individual and the institutional biases and systems that have caused that harm.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine?
'Cause I know from brokenness there's hope. I know from brokenness there's hope.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine?
To be prepared. I know I'm scared to be prepared. I know I'm scared, and I know from brokenness there's hope. I know from brokenness there's hope.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine?
To be
Change is coming.
I
What do we need to imagine?
'Cause I know from brokenness there's hope. I know yes, from brokenness there's hope, and I know
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming.
what do we need to imagine?
Change is coming.
What do we need to imagine? 'Cause I know from brokenness there's hope. I know from brokenness there's hope.
Change is coming. What do we need to imagine? Change is coming. What do we need to imagine?
'Cause I know
Change is coming.
I know
What do we need to
brokenness there's hope. I know
Change is coming.
I know
What do we need to
brokenness there's
imagine?
UCE remains a vital part of the world in our community. And because we continue to need one another in the blessings of community, we take this time to invite you to give to our shared plate. Today's offering will be shared with the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. Welcome to Maria Costa, who will tell us more about this organization.
Hello, members of the Unitarian Church of Evanston. My name is Maria Costa. I am one of the representatives with the Illinois chapter of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. Doug Erickson and Michael Skilton and other UCE members have been active in this transformative movement. We can only realize this collective potential by coming together, essentially fusing with other groups that are challenging this distorted narrative that denies essentially our humanity. Joining together as people, rooted in maintaining a movement based on our deepest values. They demand justice for each and every one of us. Therefore, this moral revival is essential to save the heart and soul of this democracy. There's a backlash occurring, and the legislators know it. They were witnessing the power of people coming together as our coalition grows. We feel this urgency to build in places like UCE to amplify our priority and affect lasting change. The current moral narrative can only be dismantled by amassing and maintaining this fusion at the local levels, impacting those that are needed the most. So thank you again, UCE.
Thank you, Maria. To give, you may text, send in a check, or give from our website. If you send in a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, pledge, capital campaign, or some other giving. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy.
Education should lead to informed action.
And informed action should lead to liberation, justice, and repair.
You declare you see me dimly through a glass which will not shine. Though I stand before you boldly, trim in rank and marking time. You do own to hear me faintly as a whisper out of range, while my drums beat out the message, and the rhythms never change. Equality, and I will be free. Equality, and I will be free. You announce my ways are wanton, that I fly from man to man. But if I'm just a shadow to you, could you ever understand?
We have lived a painful history. We know the shameful past. But I keep on marching forward, and you keep on coming last. Equality, and I will be free. Equality, and I will be free. Take the blinders from your vision, take the padding from your ears, and confess you've heard me crying, and admit you've seen my tears. Hear the tempo so compelling, hear the blood throb in my veins. Yes, the drums are beating nightly, and the rhythms never change. Equality, and I will be free. Equality, and I will be free.
You do not have to be a white supremacist to benefit from white supremacy, any more than you have to be a misogynist to still benefit from the patriarchy, or a homophobe to still benefit from straight privilege.
It is not enough just to not be a racist. We must expect ourselves to be actively anti-racist.
It is not enough to not be sexist. We must expect ourselves to be intentionally and consistently disruptive of gender discrimination. It is not enough to not be transphobic. We must expect ourselves to be obsessed with supporting the achievement or justice for trans people across the globe, as we are with our own.
An anti-racist person is on a lifelong journey
that includes forming a new understanding of and ways to live his, her, or their racial identity, and then increasing commitment and engagement in anti-racism actions.
Active engagement and a call to active living resonates from the 8th principle. Many of us who were able to attend the 2-part workshop that Reverend Connie Simon provided last week. In it, we learned of many examples about how the 7 principles have not been sufficient to address the dismantling of racism and other oppressions within our congregations or our association since the merger of Unitarians and Universalists in 1961. Our Unitarian Universalist Association started out with 6 principles and no sources. We have continued to learn and grow over the decades, and our principles and sources have and are meant to evolve with us. The 8th principle was developed in 2013 by Paula Cole-Jones, a Black woman and UUA consultant, and Bruce Pollock Johnson, a white man and member of the UU Church of the Restoration in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who worked together with other individuals who are Black, Indigenous, white, and people of color to write the 8th principle. That same year, Bruce's UU Church added the wording into its congregational covenant. In 2017, Bruce's UU Church adopted the 8th principle, and the UUA General Assembly voted to create a study commission regarding adopting the 8th principle. Last summer, the UUA General Assembly voted to create an Article 2 study commission. Article 2 of the UUA bylaws is the article that contains the 7 principles. The charge of the Article 2 study commission is to review all 7 principles and incorporate the findings of the 2017 study commission on the 8th principle. The report and recommendations for revising the principles that stem from the Article 2 study commission will be presented to the General Assembly in 2022. In the meantime, congregations are being encouraged to discuss the 8th principle and what its passage means to them. What changes will the adoption of the 8th principle bring to UCE? Let's start wide and then narrow in. For me, the existing principles are a guide, a constant reminder of the values I want to live out in the world, a touchstone that I can return to when I'm in a complicated situation and need a reminder of who I want to be in that moment. The explicit call to action of the 8th principle is a beautiful complement and a vital addition to the implicit invitations already existing in our 7 principles. But more than a guide, the 8th principle is an invitation into actively engaging in shaping beloved community. That community that strives to be all-inclusive. At UCE, we are already on that journey. In one respect, adopting the 8th principle expresses to the UU world that we encourage other congregations to join in this journey. In another respect, it commits us to delve deeper into our own anti-racism and anti-oppression work. The 8th principle also calls us to accountable action as we work to dismantle racism and other oppressions. It is this invitation that will inform our continuing anti-racism work through widening the circle, shape how we form an anti-oppression task force, and commit us to reflecting on UCE's history and current culture in order to acknowledge harm, apologize, make amends when possible, and move forward together. Ultimately, what changes the adoption of the 8th principle will bring to UCE is up to you. This is not a top-down mandate. The momentum to bring the 8th principle to UCE is lay-led, and it will be lived out at UCE by you. Like with Ron and the librarian in our story, changes will be grounded in your various relationships, roles, and responsibilities. I invite you to imagine the possibilities, remembering to include joy and celebration in your imagining. And then I invite you to share your ideas with each other, with the members of Team 8 who are listed in Realm, and with the staff and ministers. The 8th principle will be presented at our congregational meeting in May for a vote to adopt it. Over the next 2 months, there are opportunities to discuss the 8th principle, from congregation-wide town hall meetings to discussing it with your covenant group or other small group. I invite you into these conversations. I look forward to engaging with you about how the 8th principle will inspire us, guide us, and shape us in our relationships with each other, with our systems, with our communities, and with our faith. Please join me in our closing hymn, 1020, Wo Ya Ya, which was written by Ghanaian drummer Sol Amarifio in 1971 for a musical group of Ghanaian and Caribbean musicians. The arrangement in our hymnal comes from the version by Dr. Issei Barnwell of Sweet Honey in the Rock. Woyaya, like many other African scat syllables, can have many meanings. According to the song's composer, it means we are going.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within.
And we will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will.
It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We are going, heaven knows how we are going, but we know within. And we will get there, heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, 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 yeah.
As Frankie, Marlo, and Shannon extinguish the flame, please join in saying the words on your screen by Maya Angelou. We are weaned from our timidity. In the flush of love's light, we dare be brave. And suddenly we see that love costs all we are and will ever be. Yet it is only love which sets us free. Ours is a community of love. May we find in our collective challenges the humility and grace that stems from this love. And from that humility and grace, may we embrace the joys of life. Blessed be. Go in peace.